Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Athif Aimar from SMA PASUNDAN Bandung. And as the first speaker of opposition team, I would like to share my thoughts. First of all, defunding the police does not mean that the police should be necessarily erased from that city. We are only distributing a part of this funding to other parts of the city, such as funding the POC communities, healthcare, and even help out on school education. For example, New York has cut $1 billion from the already massive funding of the police department, which is $11 billion, to help out those who are in aid of supplies from the COVID-19 lockdown. And that didn't affect the city that much and actually helped out the entire community of that city. And not only that, but it can also be distributed to departments to help out those who are unfortunate, such as help out those who have mental illness, those who are homeless, and also for those who are abused, whether mentally or physically. Second, when the government team said that they should implement body cams, they already did for a long time. But yet, most of the time, they can just delete that evidence if they want to and make the person they abused such brutalized seems guilty and make up evidence because they didn't comply to what they said. For example, recently Elijah McClain was walking down from the local supermarket, and the police beat him and choked him for no reason at all. He had no criminal record, he was never involved with any kind of crime, and the police had body cams on, and yet they still beat him. Also, another point where the person or the government team said that Black Lives Matter caused more harm than good, and why couldn't they just peacefully protest? They did. When Breonna Taylor was killed in her own home by the police, there was peaceful protest. When Elijah McClain died and was declared brain dead, there were peaceful protests also. And these protests were ignored by most Americans and by the media. And when the peaceful way is ignored, what other way do you get their attention? By riots and chaos. This was proved by the riots after the death of George Floyd, where it put so much pressure on the government that they had no choice but to force change and lock up the officers that were responsible for his death. Another point that was said is only a few bad police officers doesn't mean that the entire police department is bad. Correct. But you have to remember why those police officers are bad. When there are more than a few bad apples, you would think that the tree would be rotten and bad in the first place, and you do not blame the apples. And the police department should be more responsible on handling police brutality. One of the examples, again, is when the police officers that killed Elijah McClain. When they killed him, they purposely shut off their body cams before they abused him, so that they won't be recorded and won't be held responsibly for his death. And after they killed him, a few days later, they came back to the crime scene and mocked his death. And their only punishment? Only being let off by the police department. No severe punishment and no cases was made by the government. So that begs the question, what is the solution? Well, we should remove immunity of police officers from killing innocents, make other departments of the police to help out specific cases, such as robbery, domestic abuse, and minor public disputes, and redistribute the funding of the police to help out the building of departments to help out those who are unfortunate. That's all I have for today. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.